The US Open Cup is the closest thing America has to an open soccer system. This tournament is the only time that teams from across all tiers of soccer are able to compete against one another, and it has created some of the most exciting and memorable moments for the sport in this country. You have your juggernauts facing off against your Cinderellas, but that doesn't mean that the lower division teams can't play. Just last year, Sacramento Republic ran the gauntlet, beating 3 MLS teams to make it to the final, where they lost to Orlando City. That run will never be forgotten by the fans of Sacramento, and it's probably their best achievement in club history. This tournament is special for the MLS teams involved as well, the ones that care at least. By beating Sacramento, Orlando City hoisted their first ever trophy as an MLS club. Not every MLS team puts out their best 11 for this tournament, but for the teams that do, this can be the most exciting and meaningful part of their season. Enter St. Louis City SC. Their season is off to a hot start, and as of week 9 remain at the top of the Western Conference. For a team that is considered to be beating the odds right now, it's probably risky to play your best 11 in this midweek game, but this tournament matters for the people of St. Louis. In fact, teams in St. Louis have won this tournament a grand total of 10 times throughout the Cup's history, doing so with 7 different teams across 7 different decades. In 1920, the Ben Millers shocked the world and beat the favorite Four River Rovers 2-1 to claim the city's first US Open Cup title. Yes, the team was named the Ben Millers because they were sponsored by the Ben Miller Hard Hat Company. They are not the craziest named team I'm going to list. This was Ben Miller's only Cup title, but a St. Louis team would go on to win another in 1922 when St. Louis's Skull and Steel beat out Brooklyn's Todd Shipyards 3-2. Skull and Steel never won another US Open Cup, but made the final in 1921 and 1923. In that 1923 final, a game was never played, as most of Skull and Steel's team also played baseball. They couldn't field the team, and Patterson FC were named the champions. In 1933, a team by the name of Sticks, Bear, and Fuller won 3 US Open Cups in a row. They were named after one of St. Louis's biggest department stores, but in between Open Cups 2 and 3, changed sponsorship to St. Louis Central Breweries. They changed sponsorship again in 1936 to the St. Louis Shamrocks and made 2 Open Cup finals in 36 and 37, but lost them both. St. Louis Simpkins Ford won the Open Cup in 1948 and 1950, and 5 members of the 1950 U.S. team that beat England in the World Cup all played for this club. In 1957, St. Louis Cootis, named after sponsor Cootis Funeral Home, won the Open Cup. They wouldn't win it again until 1986, nearly 30 years later. In 1988, the St. Louis Bush Seniors won 2-1 in extra time against Greek American AC, and that is the last time a team from the city of St. Louis won a final in this tournament. And by 1996, the first year of MLS, the tournament became what we commonly see in England and the FA Cup, another showcase of the country's most dominant teams with a few Cinderella runs leaking through the cracks. Since MLS was founded, only one non-MLS team has ever won the Cup, the 1999 Rochester Rhinos, and only 3 other lower division clubs have even made the final. I'm not saying that's a good or bad thing, it's just where this tournament is at now. But where has St. Louis been all this time? What have those tournament runs looked like since MLS has started? From 2015 to 2020, St. Louis's top soccer team played in the USL under the name St. Louis FC. They were not very good, only making the playoffs in 2 of their 6 USL seasons. It's a shame that once the MLS franchise was announced, it meant the end of this iteration of St. Louis soccer. But this team proved that St. Louis was more than ready for a top-flight team, due in large part to St. Louis FC's performance in the US Open Cup. The way this tournament is structured, lower leagues enter the tournament for a few rounds before MLS teams are introduced in Round 4, or in the case of 2023, Round 3. Since the USL is considered to be in the 3rd tier of US soccer, the league and all of its teams are introduced in Round 2. In St. Louis FC's 2015 campaign, the club drew USL League 2 side Des Moines Menace for their first ever US Open Cup game. After a Menace equalizer in the 85th minute, St. Louis FC won in extra time 2-1 to claim their first ever tournament victory. A week later, they played Minnesota United FC, this iteration of the team belonging to the NASL, having not moved up into MLS yet. The game went into penalties where St. Louis would win 3-1 and move on into the 4th round to face their first ever MLS opponent, Sporting Kansas City. They would lose, as expected, but only 1-0, and Sporting would go on to win the entire tournament. Not a bad showing for your first ever Open Cup run. In 2016, St. Louis drew NPSL side AFC Cleveland in the second round, where they would win 2-0. They again faced Minnesota United, still of the NASL, and the Loons got their revenge. St. Louis had to just lick their wounds and hope for another go at it a year later. This rivalry never got the chance to grow. In 2017, Minnesota United moved up a tier into MLS, and the two teams never met again. Minnesota did hand St. Louis City their first ever loss in MLS, so there's no love lost between Minnesota and St. Louis. But that's a totally different team than the St. Louis soccer team back here in 2017. Instead, St. Louis faced NPSL side FC Wichita in round 2 and beat them 4-3 in a wild game that saw Wichita take the lead in the 93rd minute and St. Louis tie it only 2 minutes later. St. Louis would win in extra time 4-3 and move on to round 3 to face the Michigan Bucks, who were on a Cinderella run of their own. St. Louis won 2-1 to face their second ever MLS foe, the Chicago Fire. I don't need to explain the rivalry that these two cities have, so naturally there was already a sense of tension going into this game. Chicago would win 1-0 in a tightly contested game, and St. Louis FC was again knocked out in the 4th round by a single goal. In 2018, St. Louis beat Duluth FC 2-0 in round 2, but lost to fellow USL side Louisville City FC in round 3. I am going to spoil something. In 2020, something not that cool is going to happen that cancels the entire tournament, and by the time it's reintroduced in 2022, St. Louis FC is no longer an existing club. 2019 is their last chance to make a lasting impression on this tournament. They've already made their city proud by making it to the 4th round twice, no easy feat for a Division III team, but they have their eyes set on something greater. They want more, and it's now or never. St. Louis FC again draw the Des Moines Menace, their first ever opponent in this tournament. I don't know if the soccer gods knew if this was the last chance this team would ever get, but having their opening game to their last ever tournament against the first ever opponent that they had in this tournament feels like a fitting end to the story. St. Louis would concede an extra time, stoppage time goal in the 124th minute that sent the game into penalties, where they would pull out the win 3-1. In round 3, they face Forward Madison FC, where they take care of business and win 3-1. In round 4, the farthest this team has ever gotten into this tournament, St. Louis FC faced the Chicago Fire for a second time in the US Open Cup. They put up 2 goals in the opening 25 minutes, which is too much for Chicago to overcome and move on to the 5th round, the round of 16. Round 5. St. Louis FC versus FC Cincinnati. Cincinnati are in their first year in MLS, and it's not going so well. This tournament is the great equalizer, though, and it wasn't so long ago that Cincinnati went on a Cinderella run of their own. The stage was set, the storyline was written, and St. Louis came to play, winning the match 1-0 with the Sam Fink added time shocker. City has already given us many moments to be proud of, but this one, from back in 2019, should not be swept under the rug. This moment is as much woven into the fabric of soccer in St. Louis as anything City has delivered so far. And Sam Fink is a club legend, a Missouri native who delivered on the biggest stage possible. St. Louis would lose in the next round to Atlanta United, 2-0, again the eventual champions of the entire tournament. That's the thing about Cinderella runs. They are a flash in the pan, lightning in a bottle. They happen so rarely that whenever a team can beat 1, 2, sometimes even 3 MLS opponents, they are remembered for years. Cincinnati in 2017, Sacramento in 2022. And while St. Louis didn't achieve the same heights that these other teams did, the city remembers. St. Louis FC is gone, St. Louis City its predecessor. In 2022, St. Louis City 2 was the only MLS Next Pro team able to compete in the tournament. In the second round, City 2 beat the Indy 11 2-0, but their third round opponent, Louisville City FC, took them the distance, winning 9-8 in a penalty shootout. Your mileage may vary on whether you see this as a legitimate run, but it's worth noting since many of the players that make up the current team were part of that squad, like Miguel Perez and Celio Pompeu. 2023 is the year most people would consider to be City's first run at the Cup as an MLS team, which is technically true. And in the first game in round 3, City beat darlings of last year's tournament USL side Union Omaha 5-1. Beating a lower division team this handily with the second team is a good sign moving forward in this tournament. The team we roll out in the next game could be these guys again, or we could bring out the big guns. And considering we drew the Chicago Fire in round 4, we may see a lot of the first team members get the start. Chicago is a team that City should be expected to beat. Including their Open Cup victory, they only have 3 wins to their name in the first 10 games of this season. And although we're still traveling to Chicago for this game, I wouldn't really call that a home field advantage. But this is the US Open Cup. Anything can happen. That's been proven time and time again. And if St. Louis does lose this game, I'll still watch the rest of the tournament, but I'll be rooting for any and all lower division teams as they do their best to take on the juggernauts. I hope your calendar is cleared for this game and you're seated and ready, because the journey for a trophy has already started. Go City, and I'll see you in the next one.